Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are back this week talking about Adventures in Odyssey episode 683, The Green Ring Conspiracy, Part 5. That's right, 5 parts.
We are 5 parts in out of 12.
We're not even halfway.
No, but I'm surprised we've covered 4 already.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Well, it also helps that as we're recording this, the first episode just went out.
Yeah, no, that is true. Yeah, you don't get, well, I guess that is behind the curtain, isn't it?
Yeah. Welcome to Behind the Curtain, our Patreon-only podcast.
It's where we go shopping for curtains every week.
And sometimes we go behind them.
What's behind them? Probably a window, maybe a fern. Always humor.
So the episode we're talking about, we don't really do context. So
yeah,
beyond that, we've got one new performer on this episode. We've got Catherine Lynch playing the owner of the printing shop. Catherine Lynch has only appeared as the owner of the printing shop.
That's
and
unfortunate.
Doesn't have any credits elsewhere, so I don't know. She does a good job, but that's
apparently that's the only thing she does do.
Yep. I don't know what got her in the door, but I'm glad she arrived.
There's got to be a story there.
Yeah.
That's where we need the lunch with Mr. Paul.
Yeah, or we could just Mr. Paul.
Yep.
we could also just just go. I don't know. We could probably track down Catherine Lynch for an interview, right?
I think we have the capability. I just don't know if I have the strength to do it, Yeah.
Do like the like Comic-Con thing where like someone who appeared in like 2 minutes of a show, you then ask them like a billion questions about the show.
You know everything, don't you? Let me
right.
Hold you to the standard that you're not an actual person.
Right, for sure. That's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the energy which we want to come forth with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Woohoo!
Do
we got a promo for this
episode? That's the context.
Dylan?
We do have a promo. I'm gonna roll it now.
On the next Adventures in Odyssey, Wit finds a clue to unlocking the Green Ring Conspiracy.
Isn't that a poster for Uncle Archie's Carnival? The artist who did the drawing signed it.
And Wally Hagler follows another lead.
Jerry, come here a minute, please.
Yeah, what?
I want you to put that GPS tracker on the back of the truck.
The pieces start to fall into place on the next Adventures in Odyssey.
Man, that felt a little spoiler heavy, kind of. Dropping the old we're gonna put the tracker on the truck line there.
And also Uncle Archie's Carnival.
Yeah.
The way he hits Uncle in that reading is really bizarre.
Well,
it's a poster for Uncle
Archie's Carnival. Is they're wrestling while he was recording it and he was tapping out, so he went Uncle Archie's Carnival. Did you think that was a funny joke?
I did.
Knee slapper, folks.
Don't slap your knee, buddy.
Oh.
We've got standards here.
That's fair.
I did like the joke though.
Thank you.
I thought it was a real knee slapper.
So this episode kicks off with Buck and Mr. Skin. They're kind of going after they're going over their plan. After Buck gets out of his AP test with Katrina, and it looks like we've got the job, things are all good. Mr. Skin is really encouraging to
Buck's like, Buck. I got the permission slip, and Skin's like, sweet, I'll sign it right here, and he's like, no, you gotta meet her in order to sign it,
and he's
like, oh no, that won't do at all,
Buck, my boy.
And it's weird. It's not about him meeting her that's the problem. He can't go into town.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a I can't. No spoilers for WandaVision here.
But yeah, he can't go into town. But for what it's worth, I kind of get it, because as we continue on this episode, everyone in Odyssey has seen Skint do something shady. Wit and Polehouse have had him described a dozen times by now.
Yeah. Long hair, tall, beard.
Yep.
Literally comparing him to Fagin later.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Real subtle imagery.
I know. It's so funny. There's also, Buck's then like, okay, yeah, we'll just do it at the carnival. Mm-hmm. And Skin's like,
great
perfect.
idea.
Let's have her meet us tonight
in the Hall
at the
of
carnival.
Mirrors.
Yeah, it did just. I was like, oh yeah. Do you remember? You remember that year, maybe 2 years ago, where everything was carnivals? Okay, so Stranger Things did their carnival episode.
Yeah.
Us had a big centerpiece around a carnival.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too.
The first season of Euphoria has this massive carnival thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about Us.
There was just like a period where all of a sudden like carnivals were hot.
Well,
just for like a year.
Yeah, for a year, and it was hot in all the bad ways, which, fair. Carnivals are somewhat scary.
Yeah, but it was bizarre that like so many like big like pop culture touchstones had a carnival involved.
I mean, it was the birthplace of like that 80s renaissance, We got carnivals and we've got really sketchy oh man, I'm trying to remember the plot of Us. Isn't there like a bunch of people underground or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is kind of a spoiler for Us.
That came out a couple years ago. I feel okay about that.
Yeah.
Go watch it. I mean, it was good. It wasn't that scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the worst season of Stranger Things had a big carnival set piece.
Take that, you Stranger Things stans. Season 3 is definitely the worst.
Yeah, but only season 1 is good.
Yeah. Yeah, only season 1 is something that I feel like I would return to and watch. The next season they put out, I'm just going to watch it once, like I did with season 3 for the sake of watching.
I'm going to hate watch this next season. I'm so excited to watch it and be mad. For those of you listening who are receptive to non-focus on the family approved content, I wrote some scathing reviews of season 3 of Stranger Things, breaking it down episode by episode. And I will be putting that link in this episode's description. Read it.
I've read them.
Scream at me if you don't agree.
He has feelings. I mean, it's very poetically done, I must say.
It's one of my favorite things I've written.
Yeah.
And if that's not your thing, one, if you haven't seen Stranger Things, you probably won't appreciate it. Two, if you're at all sensitive about content, stay away, because I don't want you guys to think less of me, Chalk Squad.
Yeah, we care too much.
But if that does seem up your alley, the link's in the description, and it's a hoot and a holler.
I won't say anything if you won't.
Nobody
has to know you read Dylan's reviews.
Yeah, that's true. And if you want me to know that you read them and have, fun feedback, email the podcast or tweet at us or, tweet at me specifically. You've got so many options to contact us, folks.
It's true. It's we as much as we pretend to hide behind a curtain, we really don't.
It's true.
That being said, getting back to Adventures in Odyssey, the radio drama we are here to talk about today.
Wait, this isn't a Stranger Things podcast.
Yeah, I forgot.
Can we just do one about Euphoria instead?
I've never watched it.
That's got the correct demographic for this show.
Yeah, the crossover is going to be great. Just teens abusing substances and conservative radio drama.
Right.
The crossover is going to be great.
So yeah, they then Skint. This was alluded to in the previous episode, but he announces they're going to take some equipment over to Hagler's junkyard.
Yeah, and to plant the evidence, and then when the time comes, we'll place a discreet phone call and tip them off. And so then we cut to Matthew and Jay at the junkyard.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I just looked at like the artwork in earnest for the first time for this, and it's Matthew, Emily, and Whit huddled around the bag of counterfeit money.
Yes.
Keep in mind, at this point in the show, only Emily has seen the bag of counterfeit money.
Yeah.
Out of all three of them.
Yeah.
It's just Emily and Eugene. Matthew parted ways. Whit hasn't been involved in that portion much up to this point.
Well, maybe he's seen Bills, right? Has he seen a bill?
He's maybe seen Bills, but regardless,
Not the same. This
Emily
scene
was
hasn't
the only
happened.
one who was there to find it.
And what's that in the background? The Ferris wheel of a carnival.
Wow. Right you are, Andrew. Right you are. Anyways, jumping back.
Yeah, Matthew and Jay are at the junkyard. Jay kind of busts in and makes fun of Matthew's hair. And he's like, oh, it's all kind of scruffy on the side and uneven and whatever.
Not that I'd noticed such things.
Yeah, not that I noticed such things. So here it's established that the GPS system totally works. And then this is when Uncle Wally then kind of comes in.
Well, yeah. The thing with the GPS, it's got a portable base that you can track it with. And I was like, oh, we've got Chekhov's GPS system.
Yeah.
And then it's not even, because it just pays off like immediately.
Yeah.
Like everything in this arc, we get set up and pay off so quickly.
Yeah, that is kind of disappointing, actually.
It's all good. So yeah, Wally then does burst in and is like, hey, Matthew, you're going to have to relocate. Mm-hmm. We've got some dangerous equipment coming in. And so Matthew's going to try and see if he can find a spot at Wit's End. Mm-hmm. He then leaves with the GPS system still being there. Jay decides to quiz his uncle about the jail time. And Wally's not really giving him anything.
Yeah. It's like none of your business. Like, it's just interesting. He's very quiet about it and defensive, even though, like, we don't really have any other established familial connection to Wally. Like, there's no Mrs. Wally that we know of or kids or anything like that.
Right.
So you would think that, one, Jay might already know, or two, that he would be willing to tell him. But I guess he is a child, so.
Yeah. And Wally very much gives off this, I want to put, like, the past in the past.
Yeah. And I think he says as much in this scene.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so they're talking about not being able to live it down, and Wally gives the line, one mistake brands you forever with most people, and kind of in reference to Paul House giving him such a hard time. Mm-hmm. And then they realize that Matthew forgot the GPS system with the portable base that will totally not help us later in the episode. Plot convenience. And then we go to Whit and Monty, where we get this, and I guess Detective Paul House is also there, and they're at Whit's house again, presumably?
Yes.
And Whit is harassing Monty to rest, and you get that whole classic, like, dad wants kid to rest, but kid constantly wants to participate.
Yep,
and so they're
and
kind
Monty's,
of like
in the other room, yelling back and forth. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It also, Monty feels like such a Jason in this scene.
Yeah.
Like, I swear Jason has enacted this exact scene at some point.
Yeah, or, I mean, I wonder if anybody... Well, is it McCusker who writes most of Jason's stuff?
Well, both Lawler and McCusker have written a decent amount, because Jason's in Darkness Before Dawn, which is Lawler, but then also in, a lot of the McCusker stuff. A lot of the McCusker stuff that is Novacom.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've both given it a shot.
Mm-hmm. So here, Whit asks Pull House about the the fingerprints that they found, and there was no matches. Pull House is fiending for some caffeine and asks Whit where it is. And then they're talking about the disc that they found. And it's on the disc is a graphics format for a printing company to make copies of it. And it's for the poster for Uncle Archie's Carnival, which is the big reveal here. Yeah,
and it's like, and Paul House asks, did you see where it was? Mm-hmm. And Whit's like, no, it doesn't say who did the prints, but a lot of those print shops will put their thing in the corner. Mm-hmm. We could, find one of those posters around town. Paul House is like, there's one in your shop, Whit.
Yeah, I was there when they were putting it up, which is actually kind of a fun.
I like it a lot.
I like that part a lot. And then we get the Whit calling Connie, and you can kind of hear her just a little bit over the phone, just freaking out.
Yes. Where it's like, Whit, you're here.
Yeah. And I feel really bad for Connie in this episode, because she is constantly kind of pushed to the back burner, and she is the last one to get any of this explained to.
Yep.
So that whole trope is very much alive and well, despite my personal preference.
Yeah. No, that's true. So, yeah, Connie is like screaming at him about it, which is, understandable, but whatever. We then jump to Matthew walking over to Wit's End and Emily chasing after him.
Yeah.
She fills him in about the money, about like the bag, a counter. He's like, she's like, it's been so exciting. And he's like, what, with like the plane crash? And he's like, yeah, but not just that. Like, found this bag of money. And then Eugene and I discovered it was counterfeit money. And then she asks Matthew what he's been up to, and he won't tell her.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I was so mad.
I was too.
Livid, like absolutely.
There is no reason that he needs to keep the phone a secret.
No.
I don't, unless, and see, this is the thing. I did not, for what it's worth, I did not re-listen to the Square One episode that sets up their whole club and whatnot, and maybe there's some club rule that, like, you don't tell girls about the projects. But regardless, Emily is so immediately forthcoming with all of her info.
Yeah.
And Matthew's just like, I can't tell you.
Yeah, it's
and there's no reason he can't.
Because
it would be one thing if he genuinely had a reason, but it is just someone lost a phone, he found it, and he's trying to give it back. Also, freaking Skint called that phone and made like a hubbub about it, and nobody talks about it this episode.
No.
Matthew doesn't tell Eugene when they're trying to break into the phone. I'm like, this feels like it's important.
You should definitely tell an adult if you get called by a random stranger and they ask you to meet somewhere.
Yeah, if you are listening to this podcast and are not an adult, first off, why? Second off,
how are you doing today?
Talk to an adult if you get called by a stranger who offers you money in exchange for a phone.
Yeah, and ignore most spam calls and don't answer the phone with yes. Emily says this thing of like, she actually calls him on it. She's like, I think that you are only keeping this secret, so like you people only keep secrets so that you can control other people. And Matthew kind of responds with like, well, don't you want to know? And she's like, nah.
Yeah.
To which,
but they do also talk about the carnival.
Yes, yeah. Emily's going to the carnival.
Yeah, Emily's like, hey, you want to go with me to the carnival? And he's like, I don't know, maybe.
The classic Andrew response. Maybe, if I don't work. So then we cut to Wally and Buck and Skint. It's Buck and Skint bringing the semi to Wally's to drop off the printing presses and like other large equipment.
We jump over to, there wasn't anything else you wanted to say with Matthew and Emily, right?
No,
we kind of
we're good.
ran that dry. We then go to Skint dropping off all the equipment at Wally's.
Yeah.
And he's saying like, Wally's like, you can make this, you make way more money selling this yourselves rather than like giving it to me for a flat rate and then I resell it.
Yeah.
Like, how junkyards work. The Skint's like, my boss just wants to turn it over real quick. And Wally's like, I don't know, maybe I should just talk to him. And Skint's like, that won't be necessary.
That won't be necessary. Certainly nothing suspicious here. See?
No, of course not.
Not at all. And then, he kind of gets super chummy with them and they're unloading it and they go to get a forklift.
Yeah. And that's where that scene ends.
Yeah. It cuts back to it later. But
right, correct.
This episode does cut around a decent bit.
It does. It's interesting.
But I like how it does it.
It does it well. And oddly, the second half of the episode does a lot of like cutting to the same characters in a different location like 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when it happens, but it happens almost like 3 times, I think. It's kind of It's
how they
odd.
gotta put fit in their stellar music.
I mean, truly, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
The intro to this episode with like the super subtle and then the like the motif refrain and like sets the tone beautifully.
I love it. So we're then with Whit and Polehouse at the poster printing company. Polehouse is talking, asks for the manager. The woman at the desk is like, I'm the manager. So I wrote down, the like manager is doing like a fun flirty thing with Polehouse, and it's cute. And then like it backfires in a weird way later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just think that this is like there's some sort of mismatch between like scripting and performance.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way with the disconnect between the language and like the tone of voice, because she does kind of perform it in like a somewhat
it's
like
really, I don't know. I was like,
and then
oh, I
Polehouse
like
engages
this.
with it, and she's like, "Ew, what?"
Yeah. Right.
I don't know any women like that.
It starts out with like, are you one of those guys who thinks being rudely terse is an endearing quality?
Yeah.
And he's like, am I wrong? And she's like, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And like,
and
I'm
what? I definitely should have been "I'll be right back," like verbal eye roll moment.
But she sounds kind of into it.
Yeah.
And then goes to the back, gets the information while Wit and Polehouse examine the poster and discover that it was designed by
Pennywise.
Not
foolish.
not Perry White, which is a funny joke.
Aren't you laughing right now?
Do you not know who Perry White is?
I don't know who Perry White is.
Perry White is the editor-in-chief for the Daily Planet, the newspaper that Superman works for.
Oh.
When they're trying to decipher what it says, they throw out Perry White before Pennywise.
That's amazing. Well, for all those people that got that joke, good on
The
you.
Dylan Weavers of the audience.
Yeah.
And then they realize, and then Wit makes the obligatory, that can't be someone's name.
It definitely maybe shouldn't be. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I feel kind of bad for Penny
Yeah.
getting. Well, we've already been over this.
Yeah,
She gets
exactly.
pigeonholed in
Uh-huh.
life.
It's tough.
But it makes her perfect for Wooten. And that's all that I care about.
But yeah, then there's a real good Wooten moment later. We'll talk about it.
In this episode?
Not Wooten being in it, but a moment where Penny does something in a very Wooten manner.
Yeah.
So he then walks out. Look, guys, I can't edit around this, nor can we keep pausing. If you hear like the sound of an engine in the background, I'm sorry. I'm just putting this in here so that if I can't edit it out, you guys at least know that I was trying to avoid it.
We did our best. We really did try. For you.
Yeah, but we can't just put the episode on pause for an hour.
Unfortunately.
So so she comes out from the back with the receipt, and it's like, oh yeah, we did that. The design was submitted by Penny. She was sent over from the college by Benjamin Trask. He was probably commissioned by the carnival. He does a lot of work, it's a lot of local places to give stuff to him that he then distributes to his
students to develop their portfolios.
Yes. Well done with the words there, Andrew.
I, for some reason, remembered that phrase very well.
And then they're like, okay, great,
Yeah.
awesome. And then Polehouse is like, by the way, do you find rudely terse endearing enough to consider having dinner with me? And she says, what about Mrs. Detective Polehouse? And he says, she succumbed to a heart attack 7 years ago, which is blunt and weird. And then the printing shop owner destroys him with, I bet she's just using that as an excuse. Next customer, please. And Wit goes, oof. And they leave.
Yeah, that is a big oof moment. I have been shot down in my life, but never quite destroyed to that level.
Yeah. It's...
Actually, the only person to roast me that hard in that way was my grandfather at my birthday one time in front of my entire family.
Yeah. Or me on probably an episode of this podcast.
Definitely. Well, that's just family. Yeah.
Right. Goes without saying.
Yeah, naturally.
So we then jump back to the Hagglers, where Wally is talking with Jay. Wally's like, hey, can I get your address? And Skint's like, oh, that won't be necessary. And it's like classic Skinty thing. And Hagler's like, I'm gonna need my accountant begs to differ.
Yeah, is what he says. And he kind of like laughs about it, to which I was like, oh, that's interesting. But then we kind of get him dipping away and talking to Jay and telling him to put the GPS tracking system on the truck. Right. And he's going to stall them so he can do that. So,
and then we get a hilarious occurrence. So this is one of these instances that will kind of be the rest of this episode now, but we get musical interlude and then Jay placing the thing on the truck. So it's like we change scenes just so Jay can like grab the GPS and go to the truck.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fine. It's just bizarre. It feels like maybe the scenes were too short for them to cut away and cut back. Like maybe they were intended to be edited back and forth and just found like, okay, that's not clear enough. And so we're going to like stay on the scene, but we'll still do the little interlude because they are like changing space. It's just funny because it happens like 3 or 4 times here at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, the percentage of this episode that is transition music it feels higher than normal.
Yeah. And it's just, right, it's rare that we get transition music cut to the same storyline.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically no time has passed.
Yeah, just like they went somewhere else.
Just like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so Jay, this scene is amazing.
Yes. Comedy gold. Jay gets caught by Buck, and Buck is like super chill, but also like, like, what are you doing here? And Jay gets super flustered. He's like, oh, I just love
I was just
trucks.
admiring your truck.
Yeah.
It's some big. Buck's like, you have a thing about big trucks?
And he's like, yeah.
Ever since I was a kid, and starts making noises.
Yeah, and he just kind of starts muttering and making, like, saying car things. And
then he ends with the killer with a truck.
Yeah, with the truck. Parallel park, with the truck.
I've liked trucks ever since I was a kid, Makes a bunch of sounds. Backing up, parallel park with a truck.
Get it?
And then Buck just deadpans. If you want to make friends, don't ever do noises like that again.
If you want to make friends, don't ever do anything like that again. Which, boy, Buck shooting straight. I mean, I guess being raised by the streets will do that to you, but yeah. Does not have any mercy on Jay.
No.
And so then we cut to Eugene and Matthew and Emily at Wit's End. They're kind of all there, which it's a weird scene because Matthew, Eugene's working on the train set that's broken, and Matthew can't tell Eugene about what's going on in front of Emily. And so there's this like kind of weird tension there, which is cool that it comes across in the audio. But it kind of makes the scene a little clunky.
Yeah. Right. So there's this whole thing where Eugene's working on the train set, and he can't figure out how to get the track to switch.
Yeah.
And Matthew's like, oh, it's built like a real one, so you actually have to flip the lever, because he knows all about Barrymore trains.
Yeah.
And Emily's like, yeah, what a nerd, and leaves.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm so mad I did not realize, because I should have figured this out when I was listening to the episode, and then the wiki pointed it out, and I was like, oh, I'm so dumb. Barrymore trains.
What's Barrymore trains?
Well, so typically trains, like the big train company, is Lionel Trains.
Oh.
And Lionel Barrymore is the actor who plays the villain in It's a Wonderful Life, who then becomes Barry Lionel in Pokenberry Falls. And the joke here is they're not saying Lionel Trains, they're saying Barrymore Trains.
Sneaky there, Mr. McCusker. Way to shoehorn your It's a Wonderful Life reference in there.
I am so mad I didn't put it together, because they said Barrymore Trains a couple times, and I was like, that's something.
I presumed it was there is a scene with Monty making a train set in on the ice fishing album, I'm pretty sure, and like there's a bunch of attention paid to like what kind of train car it is and all this stuff. And
okay.
I thought it was like an homage back to that.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was just like the way they were saying it, I was like, there is a joke here. I'm just not picking up on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, it was all for
an It's a Wonderful Life joke.
which
Isn't
you
it
know,
worth it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I always appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, I do.
It's a great movie.
It is. I can't be mad about it.
No. But doesn't it feel like you should be?
Maybe a little bit.
Just a pinch. Like pinch of salt. So Emily, like you said, leaves, and Matthew then approaches Eugene about using the workshop for, using Whit's workshop for his club because they got kicked out of the junkyard. And Eugene kind of inquires what he's looking at, and this is when Matthew kind of catches Eugene up about finding the appleberry and not being able to get into it, but wanting to return the phone to his owner, to which Eugene is like, why don't you just give it to the police? To which I say, why don't you just give it to the police? But I suppose
He's like, I want it to be my good deed for the summer.
was that a thing that people did? Do you
Yeah.
have like one good deed for the whole summer?
For sure. That's the whole premise of the Israelites.
Yeah, exactly. That's why God was so mad at them. They only did something nice once a year.
I was talking about the Odyssey Israelites.
Oh. I had Old Testament too today, so I got I got ancient history on the brain.
Fair enough.
So anyway, this is when Eugene kind of unveils his hacking program of cracking passwords by randomly just inserting, letters and numbers,
Right.
which
Well,
totally exists in the real world. Just so you know.
Yeah, well they set up this whole thing where he has put it in like 24 times and the phone hasn't locked yet.
Yeah.
And that gives Eugene to be like, okay, well, like, let's just brute force it and I'll just run through a million combinations because, I forgot to, put my password in one time.
Yeah, a
And I'm
lesson
just
to
like-
learn about not being too tricky with passwords.
Right.
I think you should be very tricky with passwords.
Yeah, well, and it just hits even harder, like dirtbags being horrible at everything.
Yeah,
the
being
fact
bad
that
at
like
his-
he
being
didn't like he maybe didn't trust himself to get his passcode in 10 tries, and so he, didn't want to lose all that information, but he also set it up so that
Anyone could access it if they had the password, and there'd be no consequences.
right, and you could work hard to guess the password.
Yeah. And guess what? They do. Matthew then questions the morality of it. He's like, "Is this legal?" And Eugene's like, "Well, if you just want to return it to the owner," and I don't see any problem with that. To which I say, "Well, if you want to return it to the owner, why wouldn't you give it to the police? You're a child. This isn't your problem."
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of vigilante justice in this episode. There is a lot of it.
Wait. You mean in this show?
Yeah, well, you're true. You are 100% correct. For as pro cop as Adventures in Odyssey is, they are also very pro civilians solving crimes on their own. So then we cut to Buck and Mr. Skint. Presuming you don't have anything more to say about the previous episode.
No. Previous scene.
Yes, that word.
I've got a lot to say about the previous episode.
That was a great one.
No. All right. I will say one other dumb thing, which is just that Eugene explains the law as like, as long as your intentions are good, it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, it's fine. We're just gonna not address it.
But like he explicitly asks like, is
this
this okay?
illegal? Yeah.
And Eugene's like, well, what are you planning on doing with it? Then you're fine. And like, I get what he's saying because it's like there is no punishment for like breaking and entering into a phone, but there would be punishment in like blackmailing or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I get it, but just that read of like, no, as long as your intentions are good, you can break the law.
Yeah, totally.
That is, I guess that is the Odyssey MO.
Yeah. And probably,
And that's why Monty hasn't been turned in.
yeah, or like any of the, property damage that they caused in the previous episode hasn't been brought up.
Oh,
I mean, it's
fine.
minor, little wooden Gorilla Glue can't fix.
Yeah. All right.
It's a new hinge.
So then we do jump to Skint, and Buck, and they're in front of a house that's that was the address Skint had given Buck when he applied for Wits End, right?
Yep.
And it's a rental that's between tenants, and Skint had
was friends with the
exactly
landlord,
Yep.
and so they're just using it as a front, a fake address, and then you get this.
They're going in there to uncover all of the furniture to make it actually look lived in. We jump back to the truck, and we get the seared in my mind line of, "Do you think they're robbing the place?"
Yeah. Do you think they're robbing the place? Yeah. I want to touch on it again, just because I think it'll be important, like later in the Green Ring stuff that we're covering. But Buck mentions wanting to live in a nice house and everything like that, and Mr. Skint's like, well, when this job is done, we'll have plenty of money for several houses and everything like that. And Buck is obviously disappointed because they can't stay at the house. They still have to stay at the compound because Mr. Skint can't be in town except for when he is in town.
Right.
And so then they go in to take off the plastic.
Yep. And we jump back to Jay and Wally watching them, which is where that line comes in. But also, I don't know. So they threw this GPS tracker on, and then proceeded to follow them everywhere and follow close enough that they could see what was happening.
Yeah, I don't get that. I really don't. It does not line up as far as these are professional.
Right.
I notice when normal people follow me too long, on a drive home from somewhere, I'm like, geez, this guy's been behind me for a while. I wonder if he lives in my neighborhood. And if he looked at his rearview mirror, he might be able to see them.
Yep. Also, presumably Wally's truck says Hagler's Junkyard on it.
Yeah.
And is rusty and maybe has a tow hook.
We can't get that sound from the audio, but we can hope. We can really hope.
Yeah.
So is this when we cut to Trask, the art class?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is Penny complimenting Connie's replica of Picasso, Don Quixote?
Yeah. Quixote. Rembrandt, isn't it?
No, it's Pablo Picasso's.
Oh.
Picasso.
Picasso.
My favorite place to
That's what they call the pizza at Costco. Picasso. Pizzasco? Interesting. My next cat, I'm going to name Pizzasco.
I can't say Picasso, nor can I say Quixote. Did I still say it wrong?
You mean Kyoto?
No, Don Quixote.
Oh, Quixote. Quixote.
Yes, Don Quixote.
There it is. Well done. I'm proud of you. Good work.
Yeah. This is what I get for not having a last name of a Sabo.
Yeah, well, we can't all have weird names that always get mispronounced. So...
Acebo.
Acababo? Acebo? Just extra letters. We'll throw them in there. Acebo. Which is actually closer.
I mean, that if you're going to go pure phonetics.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to the show.
Acebo? Is that the more
placebo?
common one?
That's what it autocorrects to if I type in my last name in Google Docs every single time.
Placebo.
Yeah.
Andrew Placebo. So Trask comes by and really talks up how great Connie's replica is, and then he walks away, and Penny's like, we got to do something fun after class, and Connie's like, all right, what do you want to do? And she's like, shopping, of course, and Connie's like, well, only if it's window shopping, I'm on a budget.
Yeah.
Because Connie's notoriously bad with money. And then Penny's like, oh, well, that's no fun. If we just get this business up and running,
we'll have money.
Be good to go. And then Connie's reluctant again.
Money pitch.
Right. And Connie's kind of reluctant, and Penny's like, what's going on? And she's like, Whit!
Yeah, Whit, what are you doing here?
Whit won't let you get a job?
Yeah.
Or Whit won't let you start a business? It's like, Connie already has a business.
Yeah. It's
Dreams by Constance.
Yeah, she has Dreams by Constance, and I feel like
Is there a cookies by Constance or something as well? I feel.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty,
she does have like
confections by Constance, maybe.
There is definitely a cookie thing, which is funny because I think
it's
she's
advertised
Yes.
on Kids Radio.
Yes.
Advertised it.
Yes, that is where I know of most of the Connie businesses.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking that she's gotta, at least be a part owner of Kids Radio or something like that with the amount she puts into it.
I don't think Kids Radio. I guess it does make money because it sells advertisements. Why did I never think about that before?
Advertising on Kids Radio?
Yeah. We should advertise this show on Kids Radio.
That would go over great. Yeah, so Wit and Polehouse enter, and they start talking to Trask, and at this point, like, the class kind of stops, and everybody's looking at it, and then Dr. Trask starts walking towards them, and Connie and Penny go back and forth, like, listing off all these questions, and going through, like, the possibilities. Like, Connie's like, oh, I really hope I didn't leave the cash register drawer open again, or something like that, and this is when, like, Trask and Polehouse comes up, and Trask says, Polehouse wants to ask you some questions about the poster that you did for Archie's Carnival, and Penny freaks out, of course, like, oh, it was not plagiarized, or it's all original art. I've never stolen anything. Yep. When I ran that red light, the light changed in the middle. All the classic, I'm scared of a cop, so you confess everything dynamic.
Right, of course.
Yeah, and so they want to go, like, have this conversation, and so Penny goes... No. So Connie goes with Penny goes with Trask, and Wit goes with Connie. Like, and it basically becomes, okay, we're all just going down there together.
Yep.
For some apple strudel, presumably? That's what
yes,
Penny
says? Yeah. And so then this is the very Wooten line, is... Polehouse is like, why don't we just invite the whole class?
Yeah.
And Penny goes, well, there wouldn't be enough apple strudel for everyone.
Yeah,
and like,
is really
if
funny.
you add like a slight chuckle and a snort to the end of that, it's a Wooten line.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. But I'm here for it as a lover of Wooten. I'm not complaining.
Oh no, as a lover of Wooten, neither is Penny.
That's what me and Pennywise have in common. Anywho, so we get another one of those cut away, but cut back to 5 minutes later when they're downstairs in the cafe.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's established in the previous scene that the cafe is literally downstairs. And so we just cut the time that they're on the stairs, I suppose.
Right. Oh, yeah, and we did, I don't think we said it, did we? But Eugene and Matthew, it happens there as well, where they are upstairs and they cut to
away.
downstairs in the basement examining the phone.
Stairs are too slow for the show.
Yep.
At least here.
Yeah.
But not in the case of the secret room.
Yeah.
It's got some continuity issues there, Odyssey.
Anyways, Trask explains that Archie reached out for him for the art, and then Penny talks about the person she met. She met him
but
twice.
It wasn't Archie.
Right. It wasn't Archie. She met him twice and then goes on to describe 3 different meetings, which is funny.
Yeah.
At Hal's Diner. She says he looks like Fagin from Oliver Twist, or specifically from the... Here we go. From the... He looks like Fagin from the George Cruikshank illustrations of Oliver Twist, which, like, you can look up, and I have them here, and, like, you can barely recognize this person as a man, but, like, wow, that's what Skint looks like, according to Penny.
He has an enormous nose.
Mostly they just wanted to, hey, Penny's got, like, art knowledge and Oliver Twist reference.
Yeah, let's just spoon feed that. Make sure we can move your jaw so you can consume this symbolism and analogy.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it is a kid show, but yeah. So I agree though that Penny met him 2 times and then describes 3 meetings was actually really funny.
Yeah.
And so then Polehouse asks about the payment, and the payment went to Trask, and it's from the carnival.
Right.
And so
Polehouse asks to see that from Trask, and he's like, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. After class, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. And then we jump back to
Wally and Jay.
Yeah, and Jay is going over the notes which he wrote on a receipt in a great scene.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And so it's this whole, like, they went from the junkyard to the rental to the carnival and then to Trickle Lake.
Yeah.
But it's all done with hardware store tomfoolery.
Which kind of makes it hard to understand. I'm not going to lie. I was like trying to take notes. I was like, okay, they did this. No, that's not a real word. That's not what's going on here.
Yeah.
But
It's just, it's a funny bit.
no, it is really funny. And
yeah.
it transfers like really well.
Yep.
But that's like where this episode ends, right?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
there
it's just like,
anything
I'm
more?
going to find out what's going on. And then we cut to Chris.
Yeah.
Which is, it does feel like a weird note to end on.
Yeah.
I feel like every episode up to this point has ended on a reveal, and that was kind of nothing.
Yeah, or even even the previous scene, which ends with like Wit kind of touching base with Connie, and Connie being like, "Somebody needs to explain to me what's going on," and Wit's like, "I'll catch you up later. Like, don't worry about it." And Connie's like, "Oh, that's always what they say." Like, I feel like that would have been a much easier way to just kind of twisty tie the episode and have it be done. But
Yeah, perhaps.
we get this. But
Hey, it
I'm
works.
not complaining about the receipt scene. I've done it.
Yeah, and that is, that's it.
Yeah. Do you have anything more to say about this episode?
Not really. This one, aside from the couple things that like I thought were really, like I don't know, like the whole like the Pole House flirting thing. There wasn't a lot that like grabbed me from this episode.
No. It felt like very much
Like,
getting
things were just
from
kind
point
of
A
on
to point B.
autopilot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it feels like a stepping stone. Monty's just kind of like thrown in the back seat
Yeah.
as opposed to the trunk. But like they don't give him anything to do really, and Wit's just kind of like, Pullhouse is like, is he gonna run away? And Wit's like, nah, he's too weak.
Yeah, he'll be I wouldn't be surprised if he got very far. Yeah. Well, and even Wit doesn't really drive a whole lot of the episode really
No.
at all. It's mostly Pole House.
Well, Pole House and Wally, I
Yeah,
would say, are the two big things. And I like that we're finally back to Matthew. I like that we finally get the convergence of art class with the rest of the mystery, because it felt like for day one, those two were very separate.
Yeah.
I like that they're being brought together here. Like, there is good stuff being done. It's just I didn't feel like there was a ton to talk about.
Is this art class 5 days a week?
Seems
Presumably.
like it. I mean, but I feel like that is typically how like summer college courses go.
Oh, yeah, that's
where
fair.
like you do it for 2 months every day.
Yeah. I've never done summer classes. I've done winter classes though.
I imagine it's a similar concept. All right. Anything else, Andrew?
No. I am all out of takes for this episode. Like I said, it feels kind of like a. I don't want to say they're phoning it in, but it's just a transition episode where they're very much just moving the plot along. So there's not really a ton going on, but they're setting up what will hopefully be a good next couple episodes and then a good finale.
Yeah.
I heard through the grapevine that we have a couple of reviews.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm going to eschew my plugs this week. You willing to do the same?
Yes, totally.
All right. Then we've got some reviews. We've got one from Fierce Forest 07.
Ooh.
It just says, really good podcast. I love listening to this while I am running around the house and doing chores, which
Hey.
that is a great way to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, do it every day, honestly.
And then we also have a review from What Did I Say? Which I didn't know you could have spaces and a question mark in your username on iTunes, but apparently you can, which is great. And the title of the review is The Best Excuse to Relive AIO.
Aw.
Andrew and Dylan, they put you first, which
Weird.
we never do.
No.
Deliver fun commentary and another perspective on my childhood favorite radio show. While sometimes critical, they maintain respect for AIO and its fans. If you love AIO and want to laugh, this is the podcast for you.
Dang, that's a good review.
Yeah.
That makes me feel
Thanks.
warm and fuzzy
What did I
inside.
say?
Yeah, what? Yeah, well, I hope you remember that, because I will. That was really nice of you. Thanks, guy,
Yeah.
girl, they, them, whatever.
Friend.
Friend! You know that a gathering of Quakers is called a group of friends?
Yeah.
Did I tell you that? I think I...
No, that's just common knowledge.
Oh, wow. Well, in a stunning turn of events, I'm behind the 8 ball on that one.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, as always, if you want to leave us a review, you can do that on Apple Podcasts. And if it's a positive review or a mostly positive, basically, if you give us 5 stars and then say mean stuff, we will still read it. We will make fun of you, but we'll read it.
Yeah.
And if you do that on Apple Podcasts in the US or Canada, we'll see it and read it off. And if you do it elsewhere, just let us know via one of our many contact platforms so that we can find it and then read it. Because, yeah, we want to give you recognition. It also warms our hearts to read these reviews. So we thank you for that. And with all that being said, Andrew, we're going to be back in a week talking about episode 684, The Green Ring Conspiracy, Part 6.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. Follow the podcast at WadFam Chalk Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Green Ring Conspiracy Part 5 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the WadFam Chalk Pod.